A Chinese car company just built a car that hit 308 miles an hour. Not a concept. Not a one-off prototype wheeled out for a press photo and locked back in a vault. A real production car that went faster than any Bugatti, any Koenigsegg, anything Europe or America has ever put on a track. To put that in perspective, the fastest street-legal car the West had ever built topped out at just over 304 miles an hour, a Bugatti record set in 2019 that everyone assumed would stand for years. This car beat it. But the speed isn't even the scary part. The car is called the Yangwang U9 Xtreme, and Yangwang is the luxury arm of a Chinese company called BYD. On September 14, 2025, they took it to a test track in Papenburg, Germany, put a German racing driver named Marc Baseng behind the wheel, and let it run. It hit 308.4 miles an hour, certified at the track. That's the fastest any production car has ever gone, full stop. Not the fastest electric car. The fastest car, gas or electric, that a person can actually buy and register. They're building exactly 30 of them for customers around the world, riding on tires specially rated past 310 miles an hour because ordinary rubber would tear apart at that speed. And here's what makes that number so strange. For as long as this record has existed, it belonged to Europe and America. Bugatti, a French brand owned by Germans. Koenigsegg out of Sweden. SSC out of Washington State. These were the names that traded the crown back and forth. Cars built by tiny teams in workshops that felt more like art studios than factories. The idea that a Chinese company would show up and take the title outright wasn't on anyone's radar a few years ago. Now it's just a line on a spec sheet, and even the traditional car magazines, Car and Driver, Road and Track, wrote it up plainly as the new record. What makes it stranger is how fast it happened. Rewind to August 2024, and the standard version of this same car ran about 233 miles an hour. Quick, but nowhere near a record. Then in August 2025, an upgraded track edition hit 293 miles an hour and became the fastest electric car on Earth, beating the Croatian-built Rimac. A few weeks after that, BYD renamed it the Xtreme, brought it back to the same German track, and cracked 308, from respectable to world record in roughly a year. Hold on to that timeline, because it turns out to be the whole point of this video, and we come back to it. So what's actually inside this thing? The U9 Xtreme runs 4 separate electric motors, one at each wheel, each producing around 744 horsepower and spinning up to 30,000 RPM, feeding off a WEN 200-volt silicon carbide system that most of the car industry is still years away from putting into production. Together, those motors make nearly 3,000 horsepower. To put that voltage in perspective, most electric cars on the road run on a 400-volt system, and the fancy fast-charging ones from Porsche and Hyundai run 800. This car runs 200, which is part of how it moves that kind of power without melting. There's a track-grade version of BYD's own blade battery underneath, built to dump its charge fast enough to feed that power without cooking itself. And it isn't just a straight-line machine. The same car lapped the Nürburgring, the most punishing racetrack in the world, in under 7 minutes, quicker than a Porsche 911 GT3. But raw power isn't the interesting bit because plenty of hypercars have big power numbers. The interesting bit is the suspension. BYD calls it DiSus-X, and it controls each wheel's hydraulics independently, so precisely and so fast that the car can literally jump. Not a figure of speech. There's video of a U9 hopping a few inches straight off the ground to clear an obstacle. It can drive on 3 wheels if one blows out. It can bounce in place to music, which owners turned into a party trick. One driver in China got pulled over and fined for making his U9 dance on a public road while a police car sat right behind him. The suspension is quick enough to hop the whole car over a strip of police spikes, which the internet noticed immediately and made exactly the jokes you'd expect. Now, if you followed electric cars at all, there's one name you're probably thinking about, and it's the name of the man who spent the last decade as the public face of the whole industry. Back in 2011, a Bloomberg reporter asked Elon Musk about BYD as a potential rival to Tesla, and Musk laughed. Not a polite chuckle. He genuinely couldn't hold it in. "Have you seen their car?" he said, before adding that he didn't think BYD had a good product, that the technology wasn't very strong, and that the company's real problem was just surviving in China. You can watch the clip. He is laughing on camera at the idea that this company would ever matter. BYD did not spend the next decade trying to survive. In 2025, BYD sold 2.26 million fully electric cars around the world. Tesla sold 1.64 million. That's a gap of more than 600,000 cars in a single year, and it's the second year running that Tesla's numbers went down while BYD's climbed. And that's only the electric half of the business. Counting its hybrids too, BYD delivered around 4.6 million vehicles in 2025, and back in 2024 it already passed Tesla in annual revenue, roughly $107 billion against Tesla's 98. That same year, 2024, was the first time Tesla's yearly deliveries had ever actually shrunk, and 2025 shrank again, with analysts pointing to an aging lineup and the rollback of US electric car tax credits. Somewhere in there, BYD also became the single best-selling electric car brand on the planet, a title Tesla had held basically since electric cars became a real market. And it isn't just a China story anymore. BYD sold more than 1 million vehicles outside China in 2025, moving into Europe, Southeast Asia, Latin America, and Australia at the same time. The company Musk laughed at didn't just catch Tesla, it passed Tesla and kept going. Musk has since quietly walked the clip back, posting that it was from many years ago and that BYD's cars are highly competitive these days, which is one way to put it. And I'll be straight with you, the 308-mile-an-hour number is the one that grabs headlines, but it isn't the number that should worry anyone. The number that should worry Detroit is a much smaller one, and we get to it at the end. First, you need to see that BYD isn't even alone in this because it's the loudest Chinese car maker, but there's an entire industry behind it, and the stuff the others are shipping is every bit as hard to believe. Take that same Yangwang brand, one step down from the record-breaking Hypercar, and you get the U8, a big luxury SUV with about 1,180 horsepower. On paper, it's a rugged off-roader. In practice, it does things that sound made up. It can spin a full 360 degrees on the spot without moving forward, all four wheels turning in opposite directions. A move borrowed straight from a tank. It can crab walk diagonally to slot into a tight space. And if you drive it into a flooded river by accident, it has an emergency float mode. The SUV seals itself, floats on the surface for up to half an hour, and paddles forward using its own wheels as propellers until it reaches solid ground. BYD demonstrated this by driving one into an actual lake and letting it bob there like a boat. It's built for floods and accidents, not for fun, but the point stands. Even on dry land, it wades through more than 3 feet of water without a snorkel, on a proper body-on-frame chassis. A production SUV that floats is not something the Western car industry offers at any price. Then there's IM Motors, an electric brand backed by the Chinese state-owned giant SAIC. Their sedan, the IML6, did something the entire global industry has been chasing for a decade. It shipped with a next-generation battery, a semi-solid-state pack, in a car customers could actually buy back in 2024. Now I want to be precise here because this part gets exaggerated constantly. It is not a full solid-state battery, the holy grail that Toyota and half the industry keep promising for 2027 or 2030. It's a step in between, semi-solid state. But it is real, it is in a production car right now, and it delivers over 1,000 kilometers of range on China's test cycle while charging fast enough to add 400 kilometers in about 12 minutes. The base L6 starts around $30,000. The version with that advanced battery costs more, closer to $45,000. Even so, that's a mid-price sedan, carrying battery tech the biggest names in the business are still only writing press releases about. Toyota has been promising a true solid-state breakthrough is right around the corner for years now. IM didn't wait for the perfect version. It shipped the good enough version and put it in a car people could drive home. And then there's NIO, which decided range anxiety wasn't worth solving with faster charging at all. Instead, it built battery swap stations. You pull your NIO into a station, and a fully automated system underneath the car unbolts your drained battery and bolts in a fully charged one. The newest generation does the whole swap in 144 seconds. Under 2.5 minutes, and you never get out of the car. NIO has thousands of these stations spread across China, handling millions of swaps a month. That's roughly the time it takes to fill a gas tank at a busy station, except nobody's standing outside in the cold holding a nozzle. NIO's flagship sedan, the ET9, adds one more trick. Its suspension is fully active, adjusting each wheel around 1,000 times every single second, reading the road, and reacting inside a millisecond. It's smooth enough that Ennio showed it off by balancing full champagne glasses on the hood and driving over speed bumps without spilling a drop. The same basic idea Bose demonstrated as a lab experiment back in the 1990s, then shelved as too expensive to build, is now a shipping feature on a Chinese executive sedan. The ET9 is also one of the first production cars anywhere to steer purely by wire, with no mechanical link between the wheel and the road, and Ennio's swap technology is spreading beyond Ennio itself, with even Geely, the group behind Volvo and Polestar, signing on to share it. Line those four up for a second. A supercar that jumps clean off the ground, an SUV that floats across a river, a sedan carrying tomorrow's battery at a mid-range price, a luxury car you refuel by swapping the entire pack in under 2.5 minutes. 4 different companies, 4 completely different engineering problems, all solved and on sale in China right now, while the rest of the world is still arguing about whether half of it is even possible. That is not one lucky breakthrough by one clever company. That's a real pattern. And patterns always have a cause. If any of this is making you rethink what you assumed about where car technology actually comes from now, take a second and hit subscribe. This channel breaks down China's engineering and manufacturing story every week, the real mechanics underneath the headlines, and there is a lot more of it coming. Now, back to the one question that actually matters. Because the obvious thing to ask is how. How does one country's car industry produce a record-breaking hypercar, a floating SUV, a semi-solid-state sedan, and a 2-minute battery swap, all at roughly the same time? The answer is a phrase that sounds boring but explains the entire thing. Vertical integration. Most car companies are really assembly operations. They design a car, then buy the batteries from one supplier, the motors from another, the chips from a third, the software from a fourth, and bolt it all together. Every one of those suppliers takes a profit margin, and every one of them moves at its own pace. BYD doesn't work that way. BYD makes its own batteries through a division called FinDreams. It makes its own motors. It designs and builds its own chips going back to 2008, when it bought a struggling semiconductor factory because it saw the coming chip shortage years before anyone else did. It even mines some of its own lithium. Roughly 3/4 of what goes into a BYD car is built inside BYD. Because it controls the battery, it can sell a pack for something like 20 to 25% less than a rival buying one off the shelf, and that one advantage ripples through the price of every car it makes. The battery is the clearest example. BYD's Blade battery is famous for surviving a test that sets most lithium packs on fire, a steel nail driven straight through it without bursting into flames. That's a safety story, but it's also a control story. BYD could redesign the cell that way because it owned the cell. And its chip division now makes so many semiconductors that it sells the extra ones to other companies. This is a car maker that is also, quietly, one of China's larger chip makers. It runs more than 100 of its own factories, and it's been planting new ones around the world in Hungary, Brazil, Thailand, and Turkey, so that wherever it wants to sell, it can build nearby. The man behind that strategy is Wang Chunfu, a chemist who started BYD in 1995 making batteries for cell phones, back when the customers were Motorola and Nokia. He built a battery company, then aimed it at cars. And that origin is the whole story because BYD was never really an automaker that learned to make batteries. It was a battery maker that learned to make cars, which is exactly backwards from every Western rival, and exactly why it's so hard to fight. Here's what that structure buys you, and it's where that one-year record timeline comes back. When you own every piece, you can change every piece, fast. You're not waiting 8 months for a supplier to retool a line. If your engineers want a new battery chemistry or a different chip layout, you go build it. BYD employs more than 120,000 engineers, and Wang has described a company that files patents almost every day. That's not a business that updates one model a year. That's a business that iterates constantly on everything at once, which is how a car goes from 233 to 308 miles an hour in 12 months. The floating SUV and the record-breaking hypercar are just what falls out the far end of a machine built to move that fast. And keep this in mind, because that same machine is quietly building something far more important than any hypercar. This is also why Western car makers can't simply copy the trick. A company like Ford or Volkswagen has spent 100 years building a supplier network, buying its batteries from outside firms, its parts from Bosch, its chips from whoever has them in stock. You can't unbuild that overnight. Back in 2021, when a global chip shortage forced Ford and GM to idle whole factories and park unfinished trucks in fields, BYD mostly kept building because it made its own chips. You can't wake up tomorrow and decide to own your battery chemistry and your chip design and your motor line, not without tens of billions of dollars in a decade you don't have while your rival is already 3 moves ahead. BYD didn't outmarket the West. It outstructured it. Now here's the part that changes the whole story, especially if you're watching this in the United States. You almost certainly can't buy any of these cars. Not the Hypercar, not the floating SUV, not the 2-minute swap NIO. And the reason has nothing to do with the cars themselves. In May 2024, the US government raised its tariff on Chinese electric vehicles to 100%, quadrupling it in one move, and it has since been pushed even higher. A 100% tariff means a Chinese EV roughly doubles in price the second it crosses the border, which is really just a wall. It's built to keep these cars out entirely, and it works. That's why the average American has never seen a BYD on the road and quietly assumes, the way Musk once did, that Chinese cars just aren't very good. The tariff has nothing to do with car quality. It exists to keep genuinely good cars from landing in American showrooms and undercutting Detroit on price. But here's the twist most people miss. That wall is basically an American thing. Cross the Atlantic and the whole picture flips. Europe put tariffs on Chinese EVs too, but far smaller ones, and calculated per company, around 17% for BYD, higher for state-owned SAC, on top of the normal import duty. BYD didn't retreat from that. It more than doubled its European sales and started building whole factories inside the EU, in Hungary, so that soon those cars won't count as imports. State-owned SAIC got hit with a rate above 35%, Geely with something in the high teens, each figure tied to how much government help the EU decided the company received. And notice what Europe left untouched: the batteries themselves. Chinese battery exports face no such wall, which is why they've grown several times over and now flow into European and Korean cars you'd never think of as Chinese. Even with the car tariffs, Chinese EVs still land in European showrooms around 20% cheaper than the local competition. Canada, for its part, matched the American approach with a 100% tariff of its own. And in the United Kingdom, the tariff is just 2.5%, barely a speed bump. Which means a driver in London or Berlin can walk into a showroom today and buy the same Chinese engineering an American is walled off from. None of this is some far-off lab prototype. You can walk into a showroom across most of the Western world and buy it today, just not in the one country whose most famous car maker used to laugh at it. And this is where all of it finally comes together, because the Hypercar was never really the point. The Hypercar was the advertisement. The same company that built that 308 mile-an-hour record breaker, a car costing about $235,000, also sells a hybrid family sedan, the kind of car a normal person buys to commute and haul groceries, for about $14,000. It sells a small city hatchback for closer to $10,000. Same batteries, same motors, same chips, the same 120,000 engineers, the same factories, the same relentless machine that set the record. People treat the Yangwang Hypercar and the cheap family car as two separate stories about China's car industry. They're really one story, told at two prices. The record shows how far this industrial base can push at the top end. The commuter car shows it can turn around and build for everybody, cheaply by the million. And that cheap $14,000 car, not the 308 mile-an-hour one, is the number that should quietly terrify Detroit. That is what Musk was really laughing at in 2011, though he had no way of knowing it yet. Not a car. A company that had quietly decided to own every link in the chain and spent the next decade turning that into an edge nobody could copy fast enough. He isn't laughing now. Nobody in Detroit or Stuttgart or Tokyo is laughing now, because a record-breaking hypercar is a headline, and headlines fade. But a $14,000 family car, built by a company that controls its entire supply chain and out-engineers everyone on price, rolling off production lines by the millions and already pouring into showrooms across Europe, that isn't a headline. Remember, this is a company that sold well over 4 million vehicles in a single year and is still growing, still opening factories, still pushing into new countries, building the single fastest car in the whole world, and on the very same production lines, some of the very cheapest family cars for sale anywhere in the world today. That's the exact scenario the entire car industry has spent the last few years quietly dreading. And in the next video, that's the one we get into, the specific thing China built that the whole industry fears most. It's on screen now.